a relatively good score. Unfortunately, it puts you in the big middle of the pack. So there's a whole lot of people that have between 75 points and 45 points, and that's a huge chunk of the center of this thing. In general, about $200 worth of projects get funded every year. $200 million runs out at between the community that scored 11 and the community that scored 12. So you guys are quite a bit out of the fundable range. It is not something that I anticipate a call from SRF. They'll say, hey, community XYZ didn't score, and so you guys are next on the list. You guys do have the ability, the PER that we put together that supports the application. You guys do have the ability to resubmit that next year. You did have I will say, although it's probably a large collapse for you guys, you did have a small collapse in the grand scheme of things of the sewer system. It's currently back in operational capacity, not necessarily 100%, but 30% operational capacity, whatever it is, right? So it does sound like there's still some other problems with the line. So it's not like that one collapse repaired everything. I anticipate if you submit it next year that you'll still probably be in the middle of the pack, unfortunately. You guys might be able to move up 5 points, maybe as much as 10 points, but that's still going to put you probably in the high 40s, low 30s, possibly in the 30s somewhere as far as projects get funded. And like I said, probably about 10 or so communities get funded every year. There is a total of, I was looking at it, to get to where you guys are at in the funding request dollars, a total request of $1.2 billion was requested by communities around Indiana. And the state usually has about 200 million. You guys are about 650 million. So if they got $650 million for funding, you guys would probably get in the fundable range. That only happened once. It was the year after COVID when we had all the ARPA money. And counties could dump ARPA money in, and the state could dump extra ARPA money in. We got about $400 to $600 million for the projects funded over the state. Anyway, the long and the short of that is you guys are 100% fine to try to wait it out and try to submit next year. Next year would be April of next year, and about this time of next year is when the project priority list will come out. It came out in kind of late July, probably mid-August is when it probably got finalized. They have a draft copy that's available prior to it going on the state website, but anybody's welcome to go on the state website and look for the draft 2026 project priority list, and you can see all the funding and numbers and everything I'm quoting. Your average bill is somewhere around $37. We submitted a project for $6.462 million to replace the trunk line, to replace all of the manholes along the trunk line, and to replace the terminal lift station. Not that there is a problem with any of the manholes or there is a problem with the terminal lift station, but the slope of your guys' current sewer line that was put in is at 1% slope, and the minimum slope that IDEM, which is a regulatory agency, requires on gravity sewer is 2%. So if we were going to put in a new sewer, we put in a 2% slope. That means all the manholes would have to get slightly deeper. The current pipe, once you get to the end of the line, would actually run underneath where the existing manholes are. So there's just unfortunately not much we can do, and you can't put a barrel section at the bottom of all the barrel sections. You've got to dig the manhole out and put a new manhole in. It's also right next to the road or right underneath the road, depending on what section of line you're talking about. And so when you go to replace a road and all that concrete and do quite deep excavation, it goes down 20, 25 feet. There's a lot of shoring requirements, and so a large majority of the project cost is replacement of that dirt, shoring that excavation, replacing the roadway and everything on top of it. Trying to, or at least hopeful, that if the project got funded, we could line the project up with the same type of time as the NDOT replacement went, and maybe possibly save some money on the replacement costs. unfortunately, it's just not going to put us in where we're going to be able to do the project this year. So your options going forward, from my point of view here, are you could wait it out, possibly have another, and there is absolutely a chance there might be another emergency replacement that you guys have to do. That being said, even as grand as the emergency replacement, it could be 4 times the cost of what you guys have right now. That's going to be a more affordable option for the ratepayers than doing a project, if that makes sense. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So if you went out with a project, even if we cut the project in half, so instead of $6 million, if it was only $3 million to be the replacement, it would still probably, and you stretch the loan out to about 30 years, it would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of a $60 increase to the ratepayers with no grant funding. Right? Yeah. That's nearly double on top of what you guys already have, right? It's like a 200% increase to what you guys have. That's a lot. I'll say, looking at all the communities around Indiana, it's nearing up on the average for communities that have newer sewer systems in place. People are paying about $70 to $80-$90 for a sewer bill for the average ratepayer. You guys are a large residential community, so there's not a whole bunch of commercial customers to spread that over top of. If you guys had a big manufacturing facility, sometimes they pay a larger percentage of the sewer costs. If I were a resident of Wilkinson, it's not necessarily good for the engineering firm, because we obviously would possibly get paid to do the design if you guys do a project, but it would be my recommendation to not do a major project at this point in time. And that is only because I think it might be in your best residents' interest to try to limp it along and see if additional funding comes out. If you guys are on the opposite end of the thing where it's like, hey, we don't want to have to deal with these unexpected costs coming up, we would be happy to take a look at some possibly more affordable options. The unfortunate thing is, outside of digging down 20 foot and replacing all the sewer, which is what a grand part of the expense is, some of the other options might be some type of whether it be low, I'm going to call it a low pressure sewer. What that means is a sewer that's not quite as deep, sewer that's maybe about 4 foot below the ground, that either exists under what's called a vacuum system. So you have a big vacuum pump down at your lift station that kind of pulls the water to it, or you have a bunch of smaller individual pump stations, which are similar to what you guys have as grinder stations right now. You could install a lot of grinder stations throughout the system. You usually have 1 grinder station per 2 houses, and then you can pump that through a smaller line that's lower below the ground. That being said, as far as maintenance-wise, that might be something that you guys could potentially maintain yourselves. Digging down 4 foot with a backhoe is not quite the same expense as digging down 20 feet. Right? But then you potentially have, 150 to 180 grinder stations that you would need to maintain. Grinder stations are not a 20-year lifespan; they're a 5 to 10-year lifespan, which means that part of your bill is going to have some of that money go into a grinder station fund. So that when you have to go replace a grinder station or a pump or something like that, it's not your responsibility and your responsibility because your houses are right next to each other. It's the responsibility of the town, right? And everybody equally pays into that, maybe $5 a month or something like that, so that when you have a grinder station that needs replaced in 5 years, you've got a little pile of cash. You have to protect that pile of cash and make sure you don't buy a new fire truck. But but that's something that you guys can do, and the financial advisor that you guys had as part of the asset management plan can help you set up to make sure your accounts and everything go to do a grinder station project, would probably be somewhere in that half of the project cost thing, but it would be a whole town project. What you can't do right now is, um, there's nothing you can do with your trunk line with grinder stations that's gonna help you out. Your grinder stations would have to be, they have to intercept the flow where the flow's flowing into them, which is about 20 feet down, which means then you have to start walking back up each street. And the pipe, while it may be 4 foot at the very end of the street, or 6 foot or 8 foot at the end of the street, it's still going to be in the 20-foot range toward the end of it. So you got to go back to all the residences and kind of raise that line up. It would be not necessarily raising the line. We wouldn't take the existing pipe and dig a shallower hole and pick the pipe up and put it in there. It'd be installing new pipes and abandoning the existing pipes in place. But you know, if I were sitting on the opposite side of the table, that's probably where I would sit, because while I think the I'm okay sharing it, but I think the cost of the emergency fix was somewhere in the south of $100,000. But you know, if you had a $200,000 replacement, $200,000 divided by 330 customers over, you know, if you had to take a loan out from a bank over 5 years, that cost would be less than raising your bill. Raising your bill, the debt service for $3.3 million over 30 years would be about $20,000, a little bit less than $20,000 a month. $20,000 a month divided by 330 customers is about $60 a person.
If you do that,
You do what?
just said
I talked about a lot of
the cost effective of the $100,000 price, splitting that over us citizens.
Sure.
So that's gonna raise our bill, right? That's what
Well,
it said.
it could.
And then
Well,
in the future, once they fix the problem, that's gonna even
it
bring
could.
us higher, right?
Yeah. So there, I guess there's a potential way that you can look at it. There is some amount of money that the town, and I don't know ourselves with the getting into all the town's finances and where their money and everything at, but the town does have a savings account. So there's some money in there, right? The problem just with having any emergency savings account is you got to replace, like if you think about your house, you got to replace your air conditioner. Your air conditioner is $15,000. Well, then if your fridge goes out, and then if your water heater goes out, and then if you got to buy a new car, and then if you got to put a new roof on your house, eventually you're going to deplete that.
Yeah.
But the hope is that all those things don't happen all at once, where you have a time to build that savings account back up. So I believe the way that the account's set up right now is that you can continue to rebuild your savings account or your emergency fund, whatever it's regarded internally. But you know, the hope would be is you can start to replenish that, and you have money in there when you have something possibly bad go wrong. But yes, you're right. If something bad enough goes wrong, and it's more than that, then the town has to take a loan out, and they have to figure out how to pay that loan back. In general, not every town is run this way, but in general, the rate for the sewer system is supposed to pay for all of the costs of the sewer system. There are sometimes towns that rob Peter to pay Paul, but that wouldn't be the way that I would recommend that you guys do business. Sometimes somebody will say, well, let's take some money from the park fund. Well, then you can't do park improvements, right? All those types of things. So, yes, there's the potential that you have one emergency after another emergency after another emergency, you know, multiple in a year, you could deplete that savings account. And then, yeah, the 3 board members would have to sit here and go, okay, you know, everybody's got to pay an extra $5 a month. But in my opinion, being a ratepayer myself, I would rather pay a surprise extra $5 a month than in perpetuity $40, $50, $60 a month.
The end scheme is, my question is, I'd rather pay the $5 now, but when the town goes, it's gonna have to be fixed eventually. When they go and fix it
Yes.
eventually, you're taking us every emergency they do that. It's gonna bump us up $5, $5, $5, and then when they get the grant, it's gonna bump us $60, still gonna bump us to 60, so then we're bumping
Yeah.
$70, $80 a month.
Potentially, yes. You know, here's what I'll say from a political side, politics aside, but from a political side, is new.
I apologize.
But as new leaders of this country are voted in and out, infrastructure funding changes. So infrastructure funding for highways change, infrastructure funding for utilities change. As new EPA regulations come down the line, funding changes. As new governors are voted in or out of the state of Indiana, as new representatives are voted in and out, and perhaps the things change one way or the other, or what we're focusing on changes. New funding is sometimes available. So, it would be my hope for the town that at some point in time, new funding would be available. There's grant programs that the city of Wilkinson is not currently eligible for because of the MHI on the previous census. Census are only done every 10 years, and the last one was just done recently. So it'd be another 10 years before you get a new census. But as new funding is available or not available, grant programs and who's eligible and who's not eligible changes. So, if the town of Wilkinson, based on the census, was represented with less affluency than they were recently represented, you guys would be eligible for $750,000 worth of grant, which a grant is something that doesn't need to get paid back. A loan is obviously something that needs to get paid back. Some of the SRF funding, all of the SRF funding, is regarded as what's called a forgivable loan, which means that a portion of the loan is forgivable, which effectively turns it into a grant. Legally, that's not how it's supposed to be represented, but just for clarity's sake, you got $6 million of funding, and $2 million of it was a forgivable loan, and you effectively have to pay back $4 million of that grant. Does that make sense? Yeah. But you bring up a good point. If in 10 years you have to do, or 5 years, you got to do a major project, the cost of $3 million today is not going to pay for $3 million, or is not going to pay for the same improvements. It's going to be a higher cost later down the road potentially.
$60 analysis that you put for the rate hike, that is not to fix all of what's in either. That is just to do part, right?
So the current project that we submitted was to repair the trunk line. If we looked at, and because the trunk line is what needs to be repaired, it is very difficult to go to SRF funding and get stored well if you try to repair a good sewer line. So what you guys don't have is all the what the drops or the inlets or the service connections. All your service connections up and down your streets are in relatively good condition. All the sewer lines going up and down the streets are in relatively good condition. So if I were to go to SRF and say we need to replace the sewer system in the entirety of Wilkinson, they would say, well, why do we need to do that? Because this is the only thing that has a problem. The issue is the thing that has the problem is the most expensive thing to repair. Mm-hmm. What I was talking about, the low pressure alternatives, is that could potentially be a lower cost option. We have to do some more work, and $60 is a very rough number. It's quite literally just going to pull my calculator out and run some numbers. But, if we were to make a major change in how the sewer is handled in Wilkinson, it could potentially be less expensive than replacing the trunk line. And if you guys were looking at, if you guys made the decision, you're like, hey, we need to do something, we hit a critical point, we don't want to take a chance that there being an emergency repair or collapse or some other problem in the future, we want to take care of it now. We would look into those other options to find out if they were truly less expensive. But it could potentially be less expensive to replace all of the collection sewer lines in Wilkinson with a different type of sewer system. If that makes sense.
And longevity of this, the lower that you're talking, is it
So
the thing is old? Is it going to last as long?
So that's so it depends. So there's a different. So your sewer system right now has one lift station. There's one main lift station that has two pumps in it. That's the biggest wear item on your system. Those pumps have to be replaced, I would say, at most every 20 years, right? They probably need to be.
We rebuild them every time.
Yeah. So they need to be putting seals in and everything after 5 years. That is a cost, but not a very grand cost. All the other sewer lines in town are gravity, which means that they're buried underneath the ground. As long as the pipe lasts, they'll be in place. They could potentially, if they were put in perfectly and encased in concrete, they could last 100 years. Never have to maintain them, never have to make any changes to it. The other alternative solutions that I was talking about, those have potentially 150 to 180 very small pumps that cost less to maintain, but would have to be maintained on a 5 to 10 year kind of cycle. They could last probably upwards of 10 years. They're very similar to the pumps that if anybody here has a basement, and has a bathroom in the basement, and they need a pump down there that grinds up all the sewage that's in a little pit and sends it up to the sewer system. It'd be those types of pumps out in your front yard, commercial grade of those pumps. So those pumps are, instead of having to replace one of those pumps for $15,000 or $20,000, you might replace one of those pumps for $2,000. Does that make sense? You just have a lot of those $2,000 pumps.
And that would be at the town's expense to replace those pumps, not the homeowners, correct?
Right. Yeah. That would be maintained by the town. It would also potentially, you guys right now have a gray water system, which means, the town of Wilkinson was previously on septic tanks. So those were all the homeowners' responsibility. When the town of Wilkinson put in their sewer system, they took on the maintenance of those septic tanks. So you would potentially move from a septic tank system to a full flow system, which means that all the toilet paper and laundry detergent and everything else that goes down the toilets and sinks and drains and everything would get ground up and then sent to Shirley. And you would need to enter into a new agreement with Shirley because you'd be sending them a different type of.
We send them raw sewage.
Yeah.
The thing about it is can Shirley handle the raw sewage, or we keep that in a gray water?
Yeah. So having worked in Shirley, the amount of flow that is showing up at their plant wouldn't change, so they could handle it. Whether or not you guys have a sweetheart deal right now for the next 10 years, or you're looking at renewing it in 2 years, I don't know. But it would require a renegotiation of that, because instead of sending your gray water, which would be no solids, you'd be sending raw sewage, which would be everything but a normal system. And normally systems send raw sewage. You guys are in a unique circumstance where you're sending the gray water.
Yeah.
But the town, and I don't know your expense of maintaining lift station, or not lift stations, septic tanks. I don't know if there's an average annual cost or something like that, but if you put in a grinder station system, the cost of maintaining septic tanks would go away. So I don't know if the cost annually is $20,000, $50,000 to pump those septic tanks out on a regular basis or on average or whatnot, but you could potentially get past having to do that, and maybe that funding that you put into that would fall over into the maintenance of the grinder stations. I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other. I'm just saying there's some other options that we could look at.
Living in a town that does have grinder stations, we have over 4 of them, I would not recommend.
Okay.
Because, and the reason I say that, you get into, you said 2 houses on one.
Yep.
Paying the power for those.
Yep.
There are a lot of problems. And the town of Martinville, I can just tell you, gave the homeowners, they used to run everything. They sort of went broke. They gave all the homeowners, said, that's your fault, all the way to the main.
Yeah.
I just replaced one, it cost me $2,800.
Right now.
Yeah, right.
You have already made it the homeowner's expense to pay the power and maintain it, right?
Yeah. So, there's that, there's the grinder station, there's the low pressure vacuum sewer. I'm just proposing those, or not proposing, but
They pay $1 per ton.
I guess I'm just mentioning that
Yeah,
there could potentially be a lower cost option if you guys were looking at, we have to do something. What we would do is we would look at what the options are, we would put together what the potential costs, capital costs and long-term costs would be for the town, and then it would be your guys' decision to make. I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other, I'm just trying to let you know that there are potentially other options than replacing the sewer. The town residents that are here, the unfortunate thing with replacing the sewer is you guys have a 4-inch line in the ground. So there are sewer rehabilitation types of things that are available to communities that have larger sewers, like an 8-inch sewer, where you could potentially line it in place. You guys don't have that option because it's already 4 inches, so it's already kind of undersized. Beyond that, there's already certain parts of it which are collapsed, which means we'd have to dig up and replace those sections before we could line it. And then once you line it, one of the other problems you guys have with your sewer is it's laid at a very even grade, a 1% grade, which means that over 100 feet it falls 1 foot, which is straight to the average, right? So you have bellies, which is where the sewer has kind of settled down over the course of time, and it settles down. And when it settles down, the water spreads out a little bit, and you end up dropping whatever. When you do have a break or something, and you have some gravel or whatnot in your sewer system, all that gravel settles out in those bellies. It requires the town to come back and clean it on a regular basis. So that's why in our report we recommended replacement of the sewer and increasing its grade so that you can get, when you do have people flush their toilets and do their laundry and everything, that it can help push that gravel down to the lift station where you can suck it out a little bit easier than trying to suck it out a little. But in summary, your kind of options are you're in Barrett for a period of time. I think that is the most affordable option for the short term. May not be the most affordable option for the long term, but for the short term, in the near future, I think that might be the most affordable option for you guys. We could resubmit your application next year. We can try to capture some more points because we've had some emergency repairs and everything. Maybe that moves us up the list slightly. I still don't think it would push you guys into the top 10% of the list. Look at options that would be what's called private funding, where you actually go to a bank. Now, I would recommend that you probably work with a financial advisor who has access to a lot more banks than whatever your local banks that you do business with. Sometimes the best rate that you can get might be on a grander scale than unless one of the owners of the banks is right here by show of hands. But sometimes you can get a really great rate through your local bank if it's a farmers union or something like that, but sometimes just going out to a wider market gets you a better rate. The rates right now are pretty terrible. The rates are hopefully coming down. I listen to the news the same as the rest of you guys, hoping that I can refinance my mortgage at some point in time and afford my house. But there's another option through SRF funding called pool program. But to do something like that, you guys have to commit to doing the project nearly upfront, do the design work, bid the project out, get a contractor that's giving you guys a bid that's affordable, and then you take that to SRF and say, okay, we've got a project, it's shovel ready, we'll start it next month. You guys give us the funding for it, and they can give you a funding application, or they can give you a funding commitment. That's a longer term loan, which spreads the cost out over a longer period of time. There are some upfront costs that you would effectively pay the interest rate, which we would roll into the funding. But there'd be some upfront costs that would probably be over the course of a year that we would roll into the financing of the loan, but you guys have to have the cash to pay for it. And I say, we're talking probably tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of upfront costs. But you get to the point where you have a project that's all committed, that you've got a contractor on board, you've got the design that's approved through IDEM, you're ready to go on it, and then you bring that to SRF, they would potentially give you a longer term loan that you could get through private financing, and you have the ability to get a much better rate through pool program than you would potentially get on private financing. Those are kind of your options. You either commit to doing a large project in some way, shape, or form, in which case we would look at all the available options to you in doing the project and funding, those types of things, or we kind of pull back and wait and try to resubmit it next year. Ask me this question, thinking that somebody might be concerned about it. The cost to resubmit your application next year would not be the same as the cost to do the application this year. You've already done the application, the PER is still good next year. Probably have some recalculation on your rates at whatever the existing rates are next year. We might want to make sure that we do an addendum or an update to the PER, but we'd probably be talking substantially less cost than what the application was submitted last year. If there are no changes, the cost would probably be, I'd be happy to resubmit your application personally. But if we need to do some changes or something like that, there'd be some cost in updating the PER. It would be very minimal in comparison to what you guys have put out to develop the PER, and there would be no update needed to the asset management plan. Your asset management plan is good for 10 years. Yeah, sure.
And submitting all this stuff, is there any way the town, something that could help the town if we would throw in try to do city water at the same time? Would that help get us approved? I don't want city water.
I'm not
Like
going to
Carthage done,
Yeah.
Carthage done city water and sewer all saying.
I'm not going to say that it would not help you in your scoring. Those systems are separate. There's both drinking water, SRF, which you might be able to get funding for because you don't have city water. But it wouldn't score you any better on your clean water, your sewers.
Yeah.
So there's clean water and drinking water. The drinking water program is a separate program by itself, and clean water is a separate program by itself. So it wouldn't help the clean water to do drinking water. But if you did both of them at the same time, and you had one contractor on site, they had to pay for one excavator to have on site, it could potentially lower your overall construction costs.
You know, as far as the application, that would help. doing
Yeah.
two at once.
It would not change your application. It could potentially change your end construction costs by lowering the average costs on the two projects and dividing them out. But I don't, as much as my conversation with the town, that wasn't something that we discussed.
It won't move us up the list.
I mean, that's why I was,
Yeah.
It's not,
maybe it might help
Yeah.
us move up the list a little bit.
it will not help you move up the list on the clean water side. The drinking water side is a whole thing all on its own. And by the way, it's not like there's nobody submitting for drinking water funding. So the drinking water list is as important. There are people that have their only option is getting drinking water through the drinking water system, and that's usually the bigger health concern. If you have major problems on your drinking water, it's a higher chance to impact the public than on the clean water side. I will also, last thing I'll say is one of the issues that you guys have is, as great as your guys' problems are, they don't impact the health and safety of the general public, or haven't impacted the health and safety of the general public. I'll say that's because of the way that the town and your maintenance department has maintained the sewer. It hasn't been easy, but there's not sewage in the streets. There's not regular backups in somebody's home every single time it rains.
Yeah, there is.
But
Like sewer line.
so, so sewage backup and sump pump backup, it's not, those should not be connected to each other. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the communities that are high up on that list, some of them have problems like every time it rains, raw sewage is in the streets the kids are playing.
They've been rode up, I'm sure, quite
Yeah,
often.
and they have a bunch of violations from IDEM. They are potentially paying tens of thousands of dollars a month, or looking at tens of thousands of dollars a month worth of fines if they don't do something with their sewer system. That's not where you guys sit. You guys sit in a very bad place where you have potential of a sewer collapse. That's not great, but the reason that you're not higher on the list is because you don't have those health problems. I'm not saying that you need to, I told you explicitly, you shouldn't get to the point of having those health problems because it's a greater concern if you do. But, you know, the towns that are high up on that list are having problems where they have raw sewage backing up in the streets whenever it rains, when they have lift stations that are overflowing into grade schools, into people's backyards. And I'm not talking every time it rains a lot. I'm talking every time it rains a little bit. They're having sewer back up. The sewer is going into the creek that everybody plays in. The sewer is going into the river that everybody boats in. They're having like real E. coli outbreak in some of these communities. Not to say they're in a better place than you guys are or a worse place than you guys are, just it makes them more applicable for state funding. They're able to capture points. There's only a total of 100 points. You guys got 68. People that are up there in the 80s or 90s have those health problems and violations with IDEM. So, well, painful for you guys to be able to maintain your sewer system right now. You are in a slightly better place than these other communities.
This funding that you're talking about that we didn't qualify for,
The Okra funding, yes, sir.
okay. What about the funding with there used to be a state revolving fund?
That's what
That is,
Yeah,
where you borrow the money. They don't give it to you, but you borrow it.
yes, that's the loan program. So the forgivable loan program with SRF, the two routes into that is the route that we tried to take with here, where you automatically qualify for it, and then that will, you know, going into it, we had this conversation. You were in the crowd back here.
Yeah.
So you submit an application for it, and if you're high enough up on that list, they'll commit funding to the town. And that's what we're hoping for. That they get to a point where they can commit funding to the town, and these guys can go into it knowing exactly what they're looking for at the end of it. Say, hey, we can afford, even as crazy as it sounds, we can afford a $30 increase to our rates, you know, but it'll get us to a point where we don't have to worry about our sewer system for the next 20, 30 years. That's what we're trying for. The other way into that funding is you go to them after you've done the design on a project. You paid for hundreds of thousands of dollars of design. You bid it out, you committed to a contractor saying, if we get funding, we will move forward with this project, with a multi-million-dollar project. And you bring that package to SRF and you say, hey, we've got $4.5 million project, we'd like to get funding for it. The problem with doing that is there is a risk, because you bring them that full funding, and if they say, hey, we have zero funding, well, then you have to say, okay, well, we've got to push this off. You can't execute the construction contract. At least you say you have savings there. But on that design cost and that development cost, you have to carry the interest on that forward until you can go after the pool program funding again. And so that pool program is generally funded 4 times a year. In each quarter, there's a pool of funding that hasn't been spent. There's not a lot of programs going to that, so there is constantly a rollover of pool funding that goes to a different community and goes to a different community, so there's a higher chance of getting that. But you do have to kind of commit up front to going to a project, where when you go the other route, you don't necessarily have to commit until you have a commitment of funding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's like talking to my wife. I ask her a yes or no question, I get an yes answer.
It's not.
Oh, she's still here?
What I don't. And the whole reason for all the additional talk and everything is, I don't want it to feel like I got all the information, I'm not sharing enough of it. I'm trying to share enough of it so that not only
I
you
appreciate
can
that. I was
understand,
kidding.
and Sam understands, but all these people who might only hear it once every couple of months or once every couple of weeks or whatever, they have a chance to understand it as well. And I'll be around for some questions after this. Unless I run out before you catch, I'm just, but, you know, I'll be around for some questions if anybody has any questions for me. But I mean, it's a really tough position that you guys find yourself in. And I ultimately, there's not an easy answer.
A lot of food for thought.
Good.
Okay, I just got one question. You're talking about the multiple little grinder stations and everything for, you know, like two,
Sure.
one per half.
Yeah, one of, it would be like one per two houses, but it's one of the available options for remedying the food system.
Okay, because it'd be whoever you ties their house, that's responsible for half of
It could be, it could also, I mean, you can also run it to where you run power lines off the city meters, you know, you have a city pole and you run power lines down the road.
it.
and the city
I
pays
was
for it.
just saying, if somebody moves or dies or something like that,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden the tire, you got to tire to that out, and it's you know, it's a power.
What I would
Nobody
say,
lives there.
we would probably try to navigate something like that, in the design of the system and make sure that wasn't a concern. So that's what I got. That's the information. There's not a decision that you guys need to make. I think it's just things that you guys need to have some conversations about.
A lot of food for thought.
And then everybody has you guys still have my cards. I got 3 cards for you, but I'll give you one of my cards as well. If anybody has any questions, and if anybody in town needs to reach out to me, Sam's got my card, so bother him. Naomi's got my card, so you know, anybody's welcome to reach out to me with questions as well. You know, unfortunately, before we move forward with the design, I can't give you a really clear direction, design one way or the other, what's going to happen at my particular house, but I can talk big picture stuff and let you know that if we did work forward with the design, it'd be something that we would work directly with you guys to make sure that it was what you guys needed and wanted.
Thank you, John.
Very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we got comments from citizens.
Michael Thompson. I think the grinder and having to attach the house and everything else, I think that's just a big can of waiting to happen.
Noted.
Because like the house I live in now was vacant for how many years?
My comments, the same one as always. What are you doing about the house behind us? Where are we at?
Well, if they're getting ready to get another letter,
And what good is it gonna do?
well, it's fines. We got to go through, let's see, so we had to reach what, the $200 mark.
Have we done anything yet? Have we done anything yet?
Well, they've got, what, 2 letters? And, or at least one.
They got a single letter and they did not pick up their certified. There's a certified letter mail, also a non-certified letter. So they got the non-certified letter, which was the exact same. They did get that letter, but they did not pick up their certified letter. So they're on to the fine. But the fine, they were last year, but it should not.
They had their first fine, they paid it, was $50. Now they're on their second letter and fine, it's gonna be $850. The third one is $200, but it's that $200. They pay it, they not pay it, the town goes in, cleans it up, to their taxes.
So my question is, has the town got somebody that's, when it comes to that, has the town got somebody that's even gonna go in there and clean it up? Who's gonna do that? Well, I'll tell you what they're doing now. Yeah, they did mow the grass, but they took a trailer, piled it full of all the stuff in the front yard, and took it around and parked it in the back. On your property, on the town's property. So now we got 3 piles of stuff in the back, that's on the town's property, and we're letting them do this.
Me and Gene took pictures the other day, we never saw that.
Yeah.
That picture turned out too.
If it gets to that point, send somebody in there to clean it up.
Fine,
Save it.
you know, and here again, we got raccoons coming out of the roof, we got weeds growing up. You know, It's just ridiculous that we give them warnings and then we don't follow through with anything. This has been going on for 2 years, and the town says, we're gonna do this.
It's been followed through
Here
now.
we are.
It's been followed through now. It will.
I hope so. And I understand everybody needs a place to live, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Like I said, things coming out the roof, and that falls under the health department.
I'll call on Wednesday.
Anybody can call them, but it's still a slow process there.
I have a comment, and for the police department, just to let them know, last Friday night, there's somebody on a quad that's been running, they'll run down Station Street, they come around the point over here, down the sidewalk. You know who they are. I was told that they were coming from Stevens' old house. But it was a little four-wheeler, we had a fire last weekend, and they were hauling butt down through here. They come down the front sidewalk in front of my house, back toward the condos, several times.
Blue color?
It was dark,
No.
it looked like a little kid's quad.
Okay.
All kinds of noise, I was surprised we didn't see anybody out, because I figured somebody would have called them in that night, because they, like I said, they were hauling butt down the back street, hauling butt down the sidewalk, and there's tires.
You have a
It
certain
was
time.
probably about 9 o'clock. Yeah, we had a fire at the start, and they headed back the trail for a while. My neighbor, he's been home, he's off work, he said they've been out throughout the day as well. And then this last week, they were out, see if we can catch them. What's your
Any more comments?
I want to know the status on the road.
Okay, well, that's one roll business. I spent 3.5 hours in the courthouse. That alley's never been vacated.
There's what?
The alley's never been vacated to any record in the courthouse. There's only been 2 vacated alleys in this town since it began. One was in 1968, the other was 1991. It's still the county, it's never vacated, so it's still an alley.
But I went on, okay, I live right next to that property. It's my property. I've gone to the surveyor's office. They told me what they have, is what I'll see in the reports, and that shows that that's my property. I also spoke with Night Star, who was out 2 Fridays ago. They were out checking the cable box, and I found I was mowing my yard. I asked him, I said, "Can we drive on this?" He says, "No, absolutely not. Not made to drive, it will collapse." I said, "Can I drive my SRV or my zero-turn radius on it?" He said, "I've been advised it." I said, "So where do you guys get the land where you're going to place the cable box?" They get that from the town. They get that from the town. And it did not show that in Alice. So that's where they put the box. Because they would not have put the box there, the cable box, where cars would have been gone over it because it won't sustain the weight.
One thing I can say there, I got the same boxes and we're driving 100,000-pound semis across.
Why would I like Mr. Walters to go through the documentation and advise the council properly? Because I've spoken to council. They said the first step would usually be the town's attorney look through the documents and then go from there. But I have spoken to council and I will take this to court. And I'm doing that, but I want to follow the natural procedure, which would be the town council attorney to look at all the necessary documents.
I went to the recorder's office, the auditor's office, which has all the records.
I'm asking for the town attorney, not the council member of the town. I'm asking for the town attorney to look at all the documents.
Terry gave Naomi a map last week it shows that it is an alley.
Yeah.
And that's a legal document.
Why doesn't the town just go through and all the alleys that are in town, why don't they just put stone in them? That way, there's no questions. Make them alleys again.
Went to the surveyor's office, that's never been an alley.
And if she
What I
got a
was
problem with it,
Right
let
there.
her go to court.
The map that we were presented with was a beacon. Everything that I have read about a beacon map, that is not a search.
Big contest. They can be off as much as 100 feet.
I would like to install all the documentation in the back.
That's what
I
For
have.
the molding stuff.
As it stands now, it is still an alley until it is proven otherwise.
She doesn't want to know driving on this alley back into his property.
We maintained that property for over 10 years.
I've lived in town 33 years, and there ain't never been any alleys that's been drove on it or open.
Most of the alleys in every town, it's an alley, it's grown up in
It is not
grass.
an alley, it does not have an exit. It goes straight behind two people's houses and into a driveway of the person who lives in the gravel driveway. It is
Right
not
here.
an alley.
Right here's the paper that shows you it's an alley.
It is not an
This is
alley.
this is
Town
a
may
street
not
that
use that as an alley,
Just because they use doesn't mean it's not an
but
alley.
it's still our property line.
Right next to Pam and Randy Curtis over here,
Well,
right behind Mr. Dillon's
But
house.
again,
This-
That's an alley. It hadn't been used in years.
Again, I'm asking
Never.
the town attorney, before the board members take property from its residents, whoever it may be, you guys did that with the driveway going past this way. Mr. Walters is looking at that property. You guys didn't want to give that driveway back to the residents until your attorney looked at it. I'm
talk
asking
about it.
for the sake of all the residents of the town of Wilkinson, that the town attorney look at all the necessary documentation before they make a decision. Before they can come back and say, your property's town, your property's town, your property's town. I don't think it is too much to ask to have the town attorney to look at it and make that decision. Like I said, I've already talked to council. They've looked at the documentation. They advised me to talk to you first to look at it, and we'll go from there. That's all I'm asking. So until that is done and the decision is made at that point, it should still be deemed private property.
Put stone in it, stone every alley in town. Right behind your brother's house too, there'll be stone as well.
I don't have an alley behind my house.
Right by Curtis.
Well,
Comes right out here on,
that's my neighbor's property that adjoins that alley. And that is an alley.
it isn't.
Yeah.
Has been for years, but there ain't ever been a lick of gravel in 43 years in that alley.
I don't think that's
Over on
I don't think it is neither. I mean, obviously, you got a homeowner here that's stating that it's her property. She's went to the courthouse, to the county assessor's office. They've given her documentation. They said it was stained up in court. And then we have members of the council or other town residents saying that it's town property. So I don't think it's proper for the council to try and take somebody's property without proving it's theirs. Or furthermore, if you're going to require the homeowner to take further action, whether it's legal action or going to court, getting an attorney to fight for them and their rights, or if the town's going to require a state survey of their property to prove that it's their property, if the town is wrong, the town should assume all those costs for attorney fees, court costs, and they should also assume the cost of the state survey because the town would be wrong.
You'd be excluded from this since that is your sister.
It is. She is my sister. I'm speaking for all residents. Because, well, I'm just, well, the people over here, just, the North Station, that's fine. The people over here on Station Street, you know, I was in favor of giving that alley to them, let them split it up, and that could become their driveway.
You vote on that to happen to help your sister.
I would, no, we're not taking a vote right now. I'm just making comments.
You as a board member should have no comments, being that is your sister. That is, just as if I couldn't turn in an application for the town board because that's my stepdad.
Sure you can.
You can.
Yes,
No, I
you can.
can't.
You can. Well, that's okay.
If you talk to assessor's office,
Nate, the surveyor's office, the assessor's office, sent me down to Nate, which is the surveyor's office. And Donnie, who was the officer that was sent to look that out?
Officer Marks.
Which he came back with the beacon.
Yeah, that's all he did.
Right, right, which is why.
My
Officers in this town don't even know what's town property and what's
I'm
not.
just asking for the town attorney, which I don't think that's above and beyond, to look at all the necessary paperwork before a decision is made. If it's decided that it's a town property, fine. But if it's not, then I don't want my property taken away just because your guys' maps haven't changed. Because the surveyor's office told me what they have will stand up in court, and it has before.
I thought you went to the assessor.
I went to the assessor's office and the surveyor's office. It must be in court. That's why I want to push the issue, not just for myself, but for other residents of the town. Is that too much to ask?
My point is this, whatever the town decides, I'm fine with it. I've lived there for 48 years and it's always been an alley. I've always been told it was an alley. I just want to know.
Me too. Because I was told it's my property.
Okay.
So I'm
You're
just
the one
asking.
that's forcing the issue, so you're the one that burden falls on to prove.
My brother-in-law lives at the end of that. It's always been a mess. You know, my husband used to take care of the town. He's lived here all his life, it has been a mess. It has
Even though
always
there's
been a
grass.
mess.
And then you've got, in this town is a small town, and you've got family, and you've got friends. I'm asking from a legal standpoint, Mr. Walsh. So would you please take a look at.
Why should the town pay for that? Let your attorney prove that.
Yeah.
Why should we have to pay a citizen of this town? Why should my monies have to go to
Because
the
I,
town's lawyer looking at something that we already know is an alley and we have paperwork documentation on it? That's your due
And the whole
diligence.
alley won't belong to you anyway. Belong to Mr. Pratt. It's not gonna belong to you.
Michael Thompson, seeing as everyone gets wrapped around the attorney's fees, and I'm not sure what the deal is with our town attorney, but is this I know that a lot of larger corporations and municipalities have on retainer where you can pay a flat rate, or is this an hourly thing? Would this actually incur any extra costs to the town? I have to look at this.
Yeah, nobody works for free.
I'm not
I don't know
saying.
about you, but I don't go to work for free.
No, what I'm saying is some people okay, it's like,
no, he's not on retainer, no.
okay, there you go. I didn't know if it was like the police or whatnot, or not. Police is a bad example, but like military where it's like, hey, you get paid X amount of dollars every week, every pay period, regardless. Okay, never mind.
He's on the hour.
All right.
I would look for guidance from the board if they wanted to pay me for that.
I will retain in counsel.
Conversation over. He brought it to you. Moving on. Fire department.
August was fairly busy. Nate had 18 calls. We had a fire, 11 EMS, 3 crashes, and 3 others. And did a good calculation on training hours. Slow outside of the calls. We have one PR event over at the Church of Christ. Matt,
Short and sweet. Okay. Sewer department.
Just a minute, if you don't. Police station check throughout the month, it's okay, 12 locations. Mosquito spray continued, working on a park fence, relocation, trying to get quotes out of Big One Fence Company. So far, I got to talk to the AI or anyhow, it's a female voice, it's not a person. But she guarantees that they're gonna call me back, so. Sewer tank 251 East Street, had a line clean on Station and Green, June Street due to a clog. The main line was replaced, sections of 16 foot of it, about a 572 First Street. That was due to a collapse. That 4-inch line had been repaired before with a 3-inch bar metal going through it. That had collapsed on the other end and got down to a half inch, so we were having a half inch of flow. It was an emergency. I contacted 2 board members. They approved it. Hills Excavating did the work. We have those sections of line outside if anybody wants to see those. The alley replacement was completed and the potholes around town were done by Crim & Sons. Pumped out 210 8th Street so the plumber could come by and get reeds out of their side of the system, which is the tank in their house. And also, I just got a quote with Crim & Sons. I sent it this morning for the section in front of that address on First Street. And I'll have to send that to you later because we send it on email. Something to be able to get it to you right now. So, been a busy month.
Mhm.
So now we know they ran a camera system through it. I do not have a copy of the thumb drive. They gave it to me. I couldn't get to work on our computers. They're gonna send it to me through email or something. We have 3 bellies in that line, which we already knew. They found those bellies. One of them is 30 feet. That means it's like a roller coaster on that line. But now we can get a jetter in, we can keep things clean, so instead of maybe every 3 weeks running a jetter, maybe now every once a year. Maybe 6 months. That cost, I think the average is around, don't quote me, but I think around $2,000 for the company. So at least we can get through that one. So, that's what I have there.
On the emergency repairs, exactly, how much was the total cost that after it was all said and done? And
I have
then
no clue. They have not sent
they
me
haven't sent the bill?
I think they've sent me the bill. It's got done.
Just finished, right?
Okay, as far as the work that was done, the pipe that was replaced, what size pipe did we go with?
Had to go back to 4.
4-inch schedule.
So it's 4-inch all the way across through there.
The manhole was sleeved to a 4-inch.
We weren't gonna
The
get any head plate.
Yeah.
Because we still got 4 here, got 4 here, to put an 8 here. Okay, now we got another one.
And you have the issue because you have to skip, stall out the manhole side. And keep the grade line, manhole set. You have to cut down here, so now with dead head, an 8-inch pipe back to a 4-inch.
Right.
Had to go back and 4, and then line on the other end. It's still not round like this.
That's a schedule 35 pipe that was put in 88, 89. 19 to 22 feet in the ground. And it's what they all pay. So it's that much pressure. part of the line that they cut off looked pretty decent. The section they took out was, as a matter of fact, it even had crack.
Crack about that long. Vacated.
Gene, Amber's had her hand up.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
mhm.
Back in June, we started renovations on the house and we had an inspection done and Nine Star ran their cable through our sewer line. Our utilities were marked, but nothing's happened. Do I need to contact Nine Star myself to get this fixed?
If you would like to help me out and give them a call, I contacted them 3 times. I know Eugene has one.
Okay.
And matter of fact, we even went up last month and found one of the trucks, Electricon, that had done the work. And telling them, said, hey, give us a number to get a hold of your boss. So messages, I have not heard anything back from anybody yet, including Nine Star.
You call, that may help out.
I have the date,
Nine Star.
times, everything that we've fought. So
I
it's-
believe
No,
you,
but
I believe you, I just
no.
didn't see any action on it and I
Yeah.
don't want it to cause more issues or
Sure.
any issues, so.
Okay. They definitely drilled through it.
Sewer line. Yeah. Not the road, not like, it's actually the town sewer line, so.
And the company was elected.
That might help, but like I said, I've called Nine Star twice actually. I know Sam's called, what, 3 or 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And.
Well, I
we'll look
figured it
into
had been done because you marked we had the utilities first.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Get the famous answer, we'll look into it.
Okay.
That's all, I guess that's a fail safe. I'm sorry for missing.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Are you done, Sam?
I'm done.
Hey. That should be, we got one left. Donnie.
All right, we logged in, our officers logged in approximately 182 hours for the month. Total mileage on the vehicles, 1,045. We had 65 traffic stops. Assisted fire and rescue, not just our fire department, but Shirley, 250 call. I think it was a transport. Greenfield was always. So, I've had 1 assist motors, assist 3 residents, had suspicious person 1, and 1 gun permit. I continue to attend meetings and work projects regarding the Eastern Hancock High School and underage drinking task force. We continue to do daily walkthroughs of our officers when they're on duty through the dollar stores. Everything's okay there. Assistant Shirley PD looking for a male streaker. And 3 traffic stops we assisted on. No, we
You know
didn't.
me, was you Shirley?
He was probably already in the house time.
He said he was not.
Got a call from Chuck Cook. There's suspicious persons down here looking at this house. It was for sale. He said there was 3 teens looking in the window. I was on. I went down there and they were gone. Nothing was damaged or anything. Assistant Hancock County Sheriff's Department on traffic accident. Assistant EMS Hancock County Sheriff's Department on a suicidal subject on Nashville Road. Had a fraud case investigation, which was a scammer. Was going to meet at one of our residents' home. They were to give this person some money, and they were going to promise them more money. We had an officer sit there down the road and waited for him to show up. They never showed up. Assistant Fire Department, First Street, controlled open burning by homeowner. Also talked with the resident regarding some firewood that was being removed or taken from outside the resident. There was not a lot of it, 5 or 6 pieces, but they were concerned that somebody took it. We had special training. Officers went to the community health PD training room in Indianapolis for firearm simulated training. This was done for free, and the training was intense and realistic simulated scenarios. That's about all I have, except I did want to ask about our revised junk or abandoned vehicle ordinance.
That's on the old business.
Okay, that's okay. That's having a pitch in again this year. Didn't get to do it last year. This is something I do every year at the fire station, and we'll post this flyer up town hall. But myself, Terry and Sally Moll will be hosting our annual pitch-in dinner on Saturday, October 11th. The pitch-in is for town residents, family, and friends. There will be fried chicken and my chicken livers I make every year, and all drinks will be provided. But everyone and their family and friends in the town are invited. There'll be live music and a 50-50 draw, but anyone's welcome to come. We'd like to see you there. The October 11th. We'll eat around 6 o'clock.
Have a chicken feet this year.
I tried chicken feet the year before. It didn't go too well. I couldn't cook them right.
Yeah.
Eugene crunched on a few of them, but yeah, I didn't go too well. So no, we're going to have chicken. Probably some ham too.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Next meeting will be October 4th, 25. Okay. Ordinance on the vehicles.
I'll get that done. Yeah. Okay. That's the revised one.
Yeah.
Right. Start tagging again.
Yeah.
Right.
Says here, sign bills.
I have a problem with the Keystone program right now.
They won't print it out for you.
They will not do nothing right now. So I have an appointment with them on Wednesday. I can still go in and pay bills and do that kind of stuff, but I cannot get to.
I know.
I do.
Nice meeting y'all.
See you later.
I'm off Tuesday afternoon for the next 2 weeks, and it will be straightened out to fix. I do have the allowance stocking for the pay. Oh, you get to sign.
Yeah, you take a look at first.
It's just the same old.
Where do we stand on the Kyle Weaver issue? The guy that we originally hired to do the tree cutting and tree trimming down at the park.
Oh,
And then he got prepaid. He got prepaid a lot of money. Failed to do the work, damaged the.
Yeah, the letter has been sent out. I have not received any call back from him, so I'll follow up on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Walter.
Sometimes show up sometime. One point. It's your house. I think it's up to you.
Yes, so.
contract bid is probably like, I think like 10 these days. Yes. Oh, I was up to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then certainly 2 months ago.
For certain, it's like,
We can find that it's shit happens. But. Oh, yeah, yes, and there's pretty good. Yeah. They're good, as long as I'm not having neighbors.
coming to my office, so.
I've been told to the office.
Oh, really? I wish.
You may still have it.
Old law.
It already applied.
See,
I try to.
I didn't have a record project.
I can pitch the beat of the ground, I can just come along and not change it.
Yeah,
That's
no.
the point. That rubber pretty much suits.
It looks like, this meeting's adjourned.
Well, pay me.
So when we're on the table, you
Wait to hear it.
one of those, the rest of it.
welcome back.
Testing 1, 2.
Thanks for your support.
Sir. Just very well.
Yeah, well, this